Soldier adopts lost dog. Months later, he's wounded in battle and declared dead, until his dog makes a shocking discovery that leaves everyone emotional. Imagine a scene filled with noise, dust, and chaos. Explosions everywhere, people screaming, smoke rising. In the middle of all this turmoil was the soldier, trying to keep calm and prepare for another hard day. He was tired, with a lot on his mind, but he had to press on. Then, suddenly, he heard a faint whimper. Just imagine, a sound so fragile, so soft, that it was nearly lost in all the confusion. Curious, he followed the sound until he reached a corner filled with debris, dust, and dirt. As he looked closer, what did he find? A tiny puppy. So small and skinny, it fit right in the palm of his hand. The soldier knelt down carefully, looking at the trembling little creature. The puppy had wide, frightened eyes and looked as terrified as anyone would be in that place. But even so, it gazed at the soldier as if pleading for help. And the soldier, feeling just as alone in that terrible setting, felt his heart soften. Without thinking twice, he picked up the pup, gave a gentle scratch behind its ear, and pulled a piece of bread from his pocket. The starving puppy devoured the bread and began wagging its tail with a joy that seemed to melt away all fear. In that moment, the soldier realized he had gained a loyal companion. With the little puppy in his arms, he felt a newfound strength, like he now had someone by his side who would face everything with him, no matter what. The puppy seemed to say, "Don't worry, friend, I'm here with you." And so, amidst all that chaos, an unexpected friendship was born. From that day on, the soldier and the puppy were inseparable. Wherever the soldier went, the dog was right there by his side, always watching over him like a little guardian. It was even funny. This puppy was so small, he could barely keep up with the soldier's quick steps, but he did everything he could to stay close, as if he wanted to protect him. In each battle, as the soldier forged ahead, the puppy would go along, brave and fearless. And even though he was just a puppy, he knew when his friend needed a little comfort. On days of deep sadness, when everything felt dark, he would nudge the soldier's hand with his nose, looking deep into his eyes, as if to say, "Hey, I'm here with you." Over time, the puppy became well known among the other soldiers. Everyone in the battalion adored the little guy who was so loyal that he never left his friend's side for a second. He even became a kind of good luck charm for them. Each time they headed into battle, they'd look at that little dog and feel a little safer, as if he brought a small piece of peace amid all the chaos. And the soldier? He couldn't imagine life without the dog anymore. It was as if the puppy had brought a bit of home, a touch of comfort to a place where everything was so terrifying. They were more than friends. They were like brothers, ready to face anything together. Everything seemed like an ordinary day. The soldier and the dog were on the battlefield, facing another mission together. But suddenly, out of nowhere, an ambush. Bullets started firing from all directions, explosions erupted on the ground, and the noise was deafening. The dog stayed by the soldier's side, trying to protect him, but the chaos was overwhelming, even for him. In the middle of the mayhem, a stronger explosion threw the soldier far away. He hit his head, and before he could understand what was happening, everything began to go dark around him. The last thing he saw was his faithful companion trying to reach him, barking and fighting through the debris and dust covering everything. The other soldiers ran to help the fallen man, but as they approached, they saw he was severely injured. Blood was running down his face, and his body seemed drained of strength, nearly lifeless. The desperate dog tried to get closer, jumping and barking frantically, as if his heart understood that this was a life-or-death moment. He wanted to protect his friend, to be by his side as he had always been, but each time he tried to get closer, strange hands pushed him away, not understanding his desperation. He whimpered, whined, and tried to break free, scratching at the ground with his paws, but no one let him near. His heart was racing, fear and pain in his wide eyes, as he watched those men carry the soldier away. Pulled further and further from his friend, he struggled against the crowd as if begging, "Please, let me stay with him. Don't take me away from my friend." But amid the mass of boots and hands, he was left behind. His friend was taken away, and he was left there, alone, in the dusty air still lingering, trying to understand why they were being separated. He ran, trying to follow the scent trail of the soldier, but the distance only grew, and he froze, his chest heavy with sorrow. All that was left was emptiness and a loneliness so big it felt like it was consuming every piece of his little heart. When everything finally calmed down, the dust settled, and the sounds of explosions gave way to a somber silence, the soldiers looked at each other, shaking their heads in resignation. For them, the man hadn't survived. This was the end of another fallen companion, a hero who would remain forever in their memories. But for the dog, none of this made sense. He couldn't understand. There, in the middle of the rubble and the smell of gunpowder, the dog began sniffing the ground, walking back and forth, trying to find any sign of his friend. He followed every little scent left by the soldier, every trace that could lead him to him. He sniffed among the rocks, looked at the faces of the soldiers as if asking, "Where is he? Where did you hide him?" Hours passed, and he didn't stop. Even exhausted, with scratched paws and hunger starting to set in, he continued searching. His eyes shone with a determination only a loyal friend could have. To him, the soldier couldn't have left like that. In his mind, his friend was still there, waiting for him, needing him. And he refused to accept any other idea. Even with no clues, even though everyone around had lost hope, the dog stayed. He wouldn't leave, wouldn't give up. To him, his friend was somewhere nearby. And he wouldn't stop until he found him. The tragedy took place in a remote village, hidden among the arid mountains of the Middle East. This place, once just a simple collection of stone houses and dusty streets, had turned into a scene of destruction and silence after the attack. The explosions and chaos left only rubble and an emptiness that seemed to consume everything around it. Amidst the debris, soldiers searched tirelessly for survivors, but in the end, they all reached the same bitter conclusion: the soldier was lost. His body wasn't found, and the place where he fell seemed to have been swallowed by the destruction. The dust, mixed with remnants of walls and collapsed roofs, made it impossible to see any sign of life. They combed through every piece of rubble, called for him, searched through the remains of the houses, but the soldier seemed to have vanished, as if the very earth had claimed him. There was nothing but a silence that cut deep, along with the harsh acceptance that he would not return. For everyone, he was dead, just another soul claimed by the war. Before we continue, remember to like and subscribe to the channel if you love animals and enjoy hearing their emotional and adventurous stories. That day, the loyal dog stayed nearby, as if guarding the last place he saw his friend. With his nose down, he walked in circles, sniffing the dust and debris, searching for any sign that might tell him where the soldier was. He looked at every piece of rubble, every empty space, and the sadness in his eyes was heart-wrenching. The other soldiers tried to take him away. Some even tried to lure him with food and kind words, but he resisted. No matter how many times they pulled him away, he always returned to the same spot, as if he believed his friend was still there, hidden, needing him. The nights began to grow colder, and the dog, alone, shivered with cold and fear, but he never left the place where he last saw his friend. Every sound, every movement in the distance, he would perk up, hoping it was the soldier coming back for him. His grief was silent but profound, a sorrow he carried with each solitary step. Over time, the soldiers gradually moved away from that place, moving on, but the dog stayed. He couldn't just leave, he couldn't accept it. To him, the soldier hadn't disappeared, he was somewhere nearby, waiting to be found. And the dog, even alone, was determined to wait and search, believing with all his faithful heart that his friend would one day return. With no one by his side, the dog began to live like a true lone warrior. He roamed through the ruins, passing by rubble, walking through open fields and empty land, always with alert eyes and his nose sniffing the air. No matter how much time passed, he remained firm in his search, driven by an invisible force and the unbreakable love he felt for the soldier. Day after day, he faced the scorching heat of the sun and the cold desert nights, surviving on the little he found along the way. When hunger grew too intense, he hunted small animals or searched for scraps of food he could find in villages. When thirst became unbearable, he drank from any puddle he found on the ground. With each step, he carried the hope of seeing his friend's familiar face from afar. Even without clues, without a clear trail to follow, he simply wouldn't give up. His determination was so strong that, despite the exhaustion and hardships, he never allowed himself to stop for too long. Something inside him told him he had to keep going, that his friend was out there, perhaps lost, needing him more than ever. In every village he passed, People looked at that thin dog, with dirty fur and tired eyes, and saw something special. He seemed to know exactly where he wanted to go, as if he had a destination, a mission. And so, no matter how long the road was or how lonely the days were, the dog kept his heart steady and his hope alive. Because, to him, the soldier wasn't lost, he was just waiting to be found. Months passed, and the dog continued his solitary journey, driven by a strength no one understood. He crossed cities and villages, always with the same goal, to find his lost friend. To him, it didn't matter how long it would take or how far he'd have to go. With each step, it was as if he could hear the soldier's voice calling him, like a whisper only he could hear, guiding him along the way. In each village he passed, the dog attracted curious glances. He was a lonely dog, with sad eyes but a glimmer of hope that wouldn't fade. Some people tried to take him into their homes, offering shelter and warm food, but he always slipped away. That wasn't his home, that wasn't his place. He had a mission, and no one would divert him from it. On cold nights, he sheltered wherever he could, curling up among stones or hiding in small abandoned huts. His dreams were always of the soldier. He saw himself running alongside him, receiving affection, feeling the warmth of his embrace. And upon waking, this memory made him rise and move forward, renewing the hope that he was ever closer to finding him again. With each new village, he sniffed the air, looked at every face, searching for those familiar eyes. No matter how long and lonely the road was, the dog never hesitated, never thought of giving up. Because, to him, the soldier was his family, his home, and he was willing to cross the world if needed to find the friend who never left his heart. As the dog continued his tireless search, the soldier, whom everyone believed was dead, was alive, but completely changed. He had been found by villagers from a remote area, unconscious and with no memory, after that terrible ambush. When he opened his eyes for the first time, he didn't recognize anything or anyone around him. Even his own name felt distant, a memory erased by pain and the shock of all he had experienced. In that simple village, people took care of him as best they could. He woke up in a small room, lit only by a window letting in the soft morning sunlight. Each new day was a strange beginning, as he didn't know who he was, where he came from, or why he was there. Without memories, he took on a new identity, a new name, and began to live a quiet life, far from the chaos of war. He devoted himself to simple tasks, helping villagers with crops and repairs, almost like an ordinary farmer. Gradually, he began to get used to this simple, past-less life. But even with this apparent peace, there was an unexplainable feeling he couldn't shake. Now and then, he was overcome with a sadness for no reason, a void pressing on his chest, as if he was forgetting something important. Sometimes, he found himself staring at the horizon, lost in thoughts that didn't make sense, as if something, or someone, was missing. At night, in his confused dreams, quick images of a dog appeared, a dog he felt was his, but he couldn't remember where he knew it from. They were only fragments, a paw resting on his hand, a pair of loyal eyes looking at him with affection, the distant sound of barking. He would wake up with these blurry images, not understanding, but with a strange feeling in his chest, as if someone was looking for him, as if he were incomplete. In that village, the soldier started to adapt, but he couldn't fill the emptiness inside him. He had everything he needed for a new, peaceful life, but something within him, a forgotten and silent part, was crying out for answers. After a long journey filled with challenges, the dog finally arrived at the remote village. He was exhausted, with dusty fur and tired eyes, but his determination had not faded. He sniffed the air, searched every corner of the village, looking at everyone who passed by, until, in a moment of pure hope, his eyes met the figure of a familiar man. There was the soldier, alive, walking among the villagers, but different. He didn't seem like the same person anymore. The dog, upon recognizing him, didn't hesitate. His heart raced, and he ran toward the soldier, barking and wagging his tail, as if to say, "I found you. I found you." For him, this was the answer to all his searching, the moment he had waited for through all those days of loneliness and longing. The soldier turned, surprised by this strange dog running toward him. At first, he didn't understand. He looked at the animal with curiosity, not knowing why the dog seemed so familiar. But as the dog jumped up and licked his hand, persistent and full of joy, something inside him began to stir, like an old memory wanting to wake up. He knelt down, looking into the dog's eyes, and it was as if a door opened in his mind. Images came in flashes, scenes of battles, hard days, and at his side, always, that loyal four-legged friend. Gradually, he began to remember the moments of friendship, the nights when the dog stood guard beside him, the silent support he always offered. Emotion overwhelmed the soldier. He ran his hand over the dog's dirty fur, and the dog looked at him as if to say, "I knew I would find you." With teary eyes, the soldier hugged him, feeling the bond from before, now stronger than ever. In that instant, he knew that despite all the pain and lost memories, his friend had never given up on him. There, in that embrace between man and dog, was proof that true friendship can overcome any distance, any obstacle. They were together again, and for the dog, all the suffering of the journey had finally been worth it. The people around watched the scene with tears in their eyes, unable to hold back their emotions. It was impossible not to be moved by such loyalty. This man, who had been presumed dead, was there but suffered from amnesia, unable to remember who he was. The shock, wounds, and time had erased him from himself, leaving him lost in a life without a past. But there, with the dog by his side, something began to reconnect. Overcome with emotion, the soldier began to cry, and each tear seemed to wash away a bit of the fog that separated him from his true identity. As he sobbed, the dog continued barking and jumping around him with a joy too big for his small, tired body. He wagged his tail with all his might, as if to say, "I found you. I never gave up on you, not for a second." The dog's jumps were light, almost dancing, as if each movement were a declaration of love and loyalty. And that sound, those barks, seemed to wake the soldier from a long sleep. He began petting his friend, and the memories came like a wave, images of the battlefield, of the puppy he had rescued, of the loyalty that had united them since their first encounter. For everyone watching, that reunion was more than just a return of memories. It was as if the dog had rescued the soldier not just from amnesia but from a deep emptiness. In that moment, man and dog were finally complete again, and everyone around, with tears in their eyes, could feel the strength and purity of a love that never gave up, even in the face of the impossible. With the dog by his side, the soldier began to remember his life before amnesia. The memories came as flashes, quick and intense, bringing back moments he thought lost forever. First came the difficult days at war, the cold, silent nights when he and the dog stayed together, just feeling each other's presence amid the chaos. Then, scenes of friendship and companionship emerged. The small gestures of affection, the playful moments during rare peaceful times, the sense of security he felt whenever the dog was nearby. As he petted his friend, the soldier began to remember the reasons he adopted that vulnerable puppy at such a dangerous time. He remembered how the dog brought hope and a bit of light to such dark days, like a piece of home in the middle of the war. These memories brought comfort and filled the emptiness he had felt since the day he woke up not knowing who he was. The villagers, watching the soldier reconnect with his past, kept a respectful silence, feeling that something sacred was happening. Each memory he recovered seemed to strengthen his bond with the dog and also with his own story. He looked at the dog and saw not just a loyal animal, but the friend who faced everything with him, who never abandoned him, even when everyone thought he was gone. Now that his memories had returned and he remembered who he was, he knew he couldn't just go back to his old life. The war had changed him deeply, but more than that, his friend's loyalty had shown him the true value of friendship, love, and courage. In that moment, he made a decision. He would leave behind the horrors he had lived and start a new life, now with his faithful companion by his side. With the help of the villagers, the soldier and the dog began a new journey together. He took on small tasks in the village, helping with harvests and construction, always with the dog by his side, who seemed to never stray. The two became well-known and beloved figures in that village, and all the residents knew the story of loyalty and reunion that united the man and his dog. They would see the two walking through the dirt streets, the soldier with a peaceful gaze and the dog beside him, always vigilant, as if still fulfilling his mission to protect his friend. As time passed, the soldier realized the dog was more than just a companion. He was an essential part of his new life, a symbol of everything he had overcome and what he could still build. Together, they found a peace they could never have imagined in the midst of war, and the soldier began to feel a deep gratitude for his friend who never gave up, even when everyone believed he wouldn't return. The villagers often saw the soldier and the dog sitting atop the hill, watching the sunset. The dog, now older and bearing scars that told his journey, would lie next to the soldier as he gently stroked his head, as if silently thanking him for all they had been through together. In moments like these, the soldier knew life had given him a second chance, and that he would never have made it there without the love and persistence of his faithful friend. And so, man and dog began a new chapter, filled with peace and gratitude, in a life they had built together, a life where love and friendship overcame all barriers and brought true redemption. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this story, and remember to like and subscribe to the channel to keep following stories like this.